Yeah, so I think we are live. So, hi everyone. In fact, it's pretty interesting chapter today because we have another Summer on call today with us, and it's not a very common name. That's what I've heard. We're discussing, that only. And so we have Samar Singh Shekhawat today, and he has been CMO of United Breweries, which is, I guess you all know United Breweries. If not, Kingfisher is one of their most popular brand. So welcome, Samar.
Thank you.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, to get things started?
Well, I belong to Rajasthan, but I was born and brought up in Assam in the tea gardens because my father was a tea planter who joined tea in 1957, and he was the third Indian to join tea. So I grew up in the tea gardens, very macho, sporty outdoor life. And
Mm-hmm.
then we sort of moved to Delhi. I moved with my brother to Delhi to pursue my education. So we studied in Delhi Public School, RK Puram and Mathura Road. And then I did my college from Delhi University. I did economics honors from Karorimal College, which is Amitabh Bachchan's college. It was famous for being Amitabh Bachchan's college. And then I went back to Assam and worked for a year in the tea gardens. And I realized that life as an assistant manager was very different from the life of the son of the manager. And I sort of realized that that's perhaps not for me. And tea was changing in any case. So I came back and did my MBA. And I got into IIM Ahmedabad in the agricultural MBA program, but I didn't take that up. I got into IRMA. And then I got into Symbiosis as well. And I did my MBA in marketing and finance from Symbiosis. And since then, I've been in the corporate world. I've worked for 32 years started with Cadbury, then I went to Unilever, then I worked with Energizer batteries, and from there I went to Dabur. From there I went to PepsiCo, then Spencer's Retail, and then finally my last assignment was at United Breweries, where I was the CMO for 9 years. Basically, I'm very fond of saying that I was Vijay Mallya's slave for 9 years. And one day I can write a book about my experiences of working with him. But yes, it's been a tremendous journey. And I quit my job about 2 years ago. And I'm now an independent business consultant. I founded a business transformation company that works with listed Indian businesses. I've also founded a marketing services company that basically deals in dairy products and trading. I also continue to do Alcobev consulting for private equity, venture capital, hedge funds. I do a lot of startup advisory, across sort of businesses and sectors. And I've also associated with a couple of business diagnostics companies, a communications company, and I do a lot of work with academia. For pro bono, I do leadership lessons with companies. I do marketing workshops, business strategy, sort of interventions. I'm also a professional public speaker, so I work with all the industry chambers, etc. So far busier than I was when I was working, and
Yeah.
really a much working for someone else, and a much wider sort of cross section of industries. Indian businesses, multinationals. I've been blessed to have worked with American, British, Dutch, Indian companies. I've worked in both steady state and startup businesses. I've worked in all over India. I've lived in Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Madras, Calcutta. I've worked in the United States, in Western Europe, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East. So multicultural, multi-locational, multi-industry experience. Also, I was thrown into leadership at a very young age in my life. I've grown up with people in the family who've had a lot of influence on my life. My father's older brother, uncle, was Chief of Naval Staff, Admiral V.S. Shekhawat. My father was, a general manager of the
I
largest
think
garden.
it is also named after him, maybe.
No, we've got, we are Rajputs, as you know, so we're three generations in the armed forces. My grandfather fought for the
Yeah.
British in the Second World War. Uncle was Chief of Naval Staff. and my uncle's son, my first cousin, he was also in the Navy, a naval aviator. He's now a commercial pilot with Indigo. So, and we've grown up with leaders around the house. My father-in-law was Chief Secretary, Himachal Pradesh government. My mother's brother, first cousin, was Raju Mama, who was, or Raju Bhaiya, as we call him, Professor Rajendra Singh, was the Sar Sanchalak of the RSS, handpicked by Balasaheb Deoras, and till today remains the only non-Maharashtrian, non-Brahman to ever become Sar Sanchalak at the RSS. VP Singh, the former Prime Minister, is my mother's second cousin. My father was, heading the largest garden for Andrew Yule, which is a tea company owned by the British at a very young age. So I've sort of grown up with leadership around me, so I've learned a lot from them. And I also got thrown into leadership positions very early in my life. At the age of 24, I was the youngest area manager in the history of Cadbury's, and I had three factories, ice cream factories. We launched Dollops ice cream, three ice cream factories, 2.5 states, and 50-year-old people reporting into me. I mean, my father was younger than the people that were reporting into me. So it was, you need to grow up really fast. And I was blessed that I had the
That's
opportunity
very,
to.
very impressive indeed. And for
Thank you.
everybody's knowledge, you guys, this is the reason why we brought him in, because marketing is constantly one of the issues that, customers, partners, almost everybody's clueless about, right? And so we thought, why not have somebody who can like just, dispel some myths around marketing, and maybe just talk about marketing. So Samar, just tell us a little bit about, like, what's your, I mean, I know it's a very, very vast field, but let's say CMO of a public company, what's your role like, what's your day looks like, and what's the, you know how does a day look like for a CMO of a public company?
I think that's a great question. I think the CMO is perhaps the highest pressure job, apart from, of course, the CEO of the company, in any organization today. Uh,
Mhm.
and really, I think the role has evolved from just being a chief marketing officer to really something called CGO, which is chief growth officer,
Yeah.
because the person has to work with sales, with marketing, with finance, commercial, with procurement, with supply chain, with HR, with governance. And I'm very fond of saying that marketing is the only function in the organization that is outward looking.
Yeah.
You're the interface between the brand and the products and services and your company and the outside world. Typically, finance is an inward looking function. Production, or HR is an inward looking function. Your interface with the outside world is hiring people and then growing them and developing them. Procurement is dealing with vendors and buying products and doing a great job of that. And sales, of course, is dealing with your channels, but you don't deal typically in most businesses directly with the customer. I mean, there are exceptions, of course, but
Yeah.
marketing is really always putting the messaging, and you're the voice of the customer or the consumer in the boardroom. So that is number one. Number two, you're responsible. I mean, you and the team are responsible for actually not just spending money. You're responsible for delivering growth for the brand, for the organization. Now, the growth could be in terms of revenue, it could be in terms of market share, it could be in terms of market capitalization, it could be in terms of brand health indicators, it could be in terms of new consumers garnered, etc. But it's always taking the money that is earned by the sales team and allocating it in such a way that it best serves the organization's interests in terms of the outside world. So that's number one. Number two, I think the environment has become far more complex than it ever was. I think technology has disrupted the marketing officers or the chief CMO's job more than almost any other function in the corporate world. From media choices to the way consumers behave, to the way that the fact that there are many Indias, there is no one India. Millennials, in any case, have completely different motivations. They value, for instance, experiences over possessions. They will only buy brands that have a purpose. Then there are many other, micro trends or mega trends, depending on how you want to look at them. There is a tremendous sense of pride in India and Indian achievements. There is a sense of coming back to your roots and nationalism. At the same time, there's a new confident India that is ready to take on the world. And I'm fond of saying that Indians may read and write in English, but they think in vernacular. and they speak in the vernacular. So to give an example, if I were watching an Avengers movie in Barcelona or in Madrid, why is it unreasonable to expect people in the interval to be speaking anything other than uh, Spanish or Catalan or Basque, depending on which region you are? Now, I live in Bangalore, so I go to see an Avengers movie in English, and during the interval, everyone around me is speaking in Kannada or maybe Tamil. So that's their first, they think in the vernacular, they speak in the vernacular. They may read and write in English. And as a
Yeah.
marketer, there's also tremendous diversity in this country, Samar. I mean, we have diversity of geography, of climate, of scripts, of languages, uh, of cuisine, of festivals, social sort of customs and traditions. There's just so many different countries. I keep saying that managing India is like managing the European Union without Brexit. you know so it's a complex nation. Then technological disruption, far greater choice for younger consumers today than in our time. And really the ground changes an inch every day, and you may
Yeah.
not notice that 1 inch, but after 12 days you suddenly notice that it has moved 1 foot. So it's
My,
really
my
the way.
CMO
Yeah.
my CMO just messaged me that, this is a very good speaker privately. I said,
Thank you.
I
What
will
I'm
make.
fond of, yeah, what I'm fond of saying is that the CMO's feet are the ones that are closest to the fire. And
Yeah.
frankly, the CMO is the first guy to get sacked if things go wrong. The global average tenure of a CMO is 4 years. I was there for 9 years, so I either they didn't find anyone better than me to do the job, or cheaper than me to do the job, or maybe I didn't
He's
mess up
just
too
good, man.
badly. Maybe I didn't
So
mess up too badly, yeah. But it's an extremely high pressure job today. You need to look at data. You need to look at, and you're in that business. You need to look at technology. You need to marry it with your own gut feel. And what is gut feel, Samar? Gut feel is not something that you wake up in the morning and have a conversation with your daughter about. It's the repository of your entire work and life experience. So that is what your gut feel is.
yeah.
So I'm a big one for being right-brained as well as left-brained, a judicious combination of data as well as marrying it with your own intuition, with your own experiences, and also looking at the reality on the ground. And you must be ready to change your mind all the time.
Yeah.
Mahatma Gandhi said that only a fool doesn't change his mind. So because alternative facts are presenting themselves all the time. I mean, who could have thought that TikTok would have 600 million subscribers? And I know you're going to talk about a little later in the conversation, but why hasn't anyone already launched an Indian version? I know 4 or 5 people already working on it. But so those are the. I mean, there's no easy answer, and it's a great question.
So Summer, moving on to, like, more audience specific thing, which is, so most of our people are either entrepreneurs who are watching, are entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
or who want to be entrepreneurs at some point, right? I say, like, every employee we have in the company, they are typically saying that, they'll eventually want to be entrepreneurs, right? That's
Right.
what we also want, and a lot of them are there like that. So, and their biggest question, generally, most common question is, how do I market as a startup without much budget? So, is there an answer to that, or is there no answer to that? So,
You know, about a year ago, I was speaking at a Kalari Capital event at
mhm,
their co-working space. I think it's called K-Start
yeah,
in Whitefield, and the
yeah,
room was full of about 150 startup entrepreneurs. And they got me to speak last because they knew that I would say something controversial, which means I would speak the truth. So I started my talk by saying, it's very easy to build a business on someone else's money. And there was silence in the room, and then everyone started laughing and applauding. I said, you may feel offended about it, but that's the truth. Throughout my life, Summer, I have launched new brands for large companies. When I started my career, I launched Dollops ice cream for Cadbury's. Then I launched Walls ice cream for Unilever. I launched Energizer batteries in this country. Then I went to Pepsi and I launched Tropicana. I launched Gatorade. I launched Aquafina. I launched Pepsi Blue, Mountain Dew. Then came to, sorry, even before that with Dabur, I started a completely new natural products division from scratch. You may have heard of brands like Sonova, Spirulina, etc. From
Yeah.
there, I went to Spencer's Retail, started the entire business from scratch. And at UB, all the new brands that you see were all launched during my time, from Kingfisher Ultra to Ultra Max to Blue to Red to Kingfisher Storm to Kingfisher Draft to Heineken, Amstel, everything. So I have experience of launching new brands throughout my life, and we never had access to institutional funding. There was no question of asking angel investors, private equity, or venture capital for money. So this fancy term of being bootstrapped or a bootstrap shoestring budget, that's all we have known all our lives. There just is a fancy term for it now. Uh,
That was form.
yeah, that's true. So I think it is eminently possible to launch a brand without initial seed money, but of course, at an appropriate time, depending on your scale, your ambition, and your capability and your ability to convince funders, you would require that. But I also want to strike a note of caution, for people like us who've seen. I'm now in my fourth decade in business. I'm 32 years, so I've entered my fourth decade. We see things going in cycles, from advertising agencies that were full service agencies to breaking up to coming back as full service to again going specialist and now again coming back. Things like the internet.com meltdown of 2000, of 2000, then the banking crisis of 2008, and so on and so forth. Um, we are seeing today, COVID sort of related disruptions, but anyone's been in business for long enough, this too shall pass. And today, funding may be tighter than it ever was, but frankly, that's the only world we've known. And I think there's a lot of sentiment that drives this. Is Byju's worth 10 billion? Who can tell? I really don't know. This whole thing about unit economics and future stream of income, etc. The thing about Indians is that we are a very optimistic people. We always believe that today is better than yesterday and tomorrow will be better than today. That's the whole philosophy of this nation. And thank God for that philosophy. हम हमेशा बोलते हैं भाई कल आज से अच्छा होगा. We plan for the future. We plan for our children. We plan for our old age. We plan for our parents' old age. So I think some of that rubs off into funding as well. Frankly, I think funding has been far too easy to come by, because today I mean no disrespect. He's a lovely guy, but if I see Ritesh Agarwal's whole business model, and if I look at Oyo rooms, I've stayed in Oyo rooms, and I think I was one of the lone dissenting voices that said he's just growing too fast too soon. This is not going to sustain. Because we've been there, Samar. We've done that so many times. So it's also, you're not building the foundation for a business. It takes much longer. It takes far more diligence. And the issue is that a lot of these entrepreneurs are very young boys and girls.
Yeah.
And they may not necessarily have the life skills. Forget about business skills. I mean, I just finished reading a book, which I'm sure you've read it. If you haven't, you must. It's a book called Big Billion Startup. It's about the Flipkart story, written by a friend of mine called Mihir Dalal. Astoundingly well-researched bit. And if you look at Sachin and Binny Bansal, I mean, at the end of the day, for someone like me, they're bachas, right? So there's a certain stage in your life that you haven't yet reached. And if you're successful as a startup, what happens is that you start facing problems at the age of 28, 30 that you would face when you were 45 years old. So you don't have the life skills to handle that situation. Today, if you show me a business model, I can tell you whether it's going to work or not. If you show me an organization structure and you show me the people that are actually part of that organization structure, by talking to people for 5 minutes, I can tell you whether this person is suited for that function or not, simply because we've done it thousands of times prior. So, and I find my single biggest challenge, Samar, with advising startups is that if you have never heard, if I'm Virat Kohli and you've never heard of the game of cricket,
Yeah.
how do I tell you what I am? I can't. So the example, you may laugh, but the example I use with people is, let's assume you're 27, 28 years old. Are you married? No, sir. Do you have a girlfriend? No, sir. Or I said, okay, let's imagine tomorrow you fall in love and get married to a 40-year-old woman who has a 16, 17-year-old son from a previous marriage. Now, overnight, you go from being a 27, 28-year-old bachelor to a father of an 18-year-old son and the husband of a wife who was 28 12 years ago. How are you going to run your life? Because nothing in your background, your breeding, your upbringing, your education has prepared you for this. So when I tell them this, I said, now take this into business. If you're successful, you're facing problems at the age of 28 that you would typically face at 40. So hire people like us who can be your guide and mentor and advisor, and tell you how to run those things. But yes, I think it is eminently possible to build a business on sort of small funds. My only singular advice to all the startup people: focus on value, not on valuation. If you focus on value, yeah, if
I'm
you
going to,
focus on, yeah, please use it. For if you focus on value, somehow valuation will come.
yeah,
Focus on building the best possible product, delivering the best possible service, time after time after time. The valuation will come.
yeah.
You focus on valuation, you start compromising on everything else. You compromise on your business model, you compromise on your employees, you're rushing to touch your investors' feet.
I think
I've had startup clients walk out of meetings because the investor just landed in Bangalore. I say, yeah, but the guy's like 3 hours away. You can, so yeah, so that's my answer.
I think that's very true. There's so many. In fact, COVID has exposed so many business models which are completely frivolous. I mean, like they didn't make sense, and almost every company, every mature company was able to figure it out, right? I mean, if you look at
It's
all
true.
the bigger brands, they because they had cash flows, they understood, that this is just a
Yeah.
cycle. But startups who had like literally losses, they are not sure, if they should burn more money to get more traction or to conserve capital and go to zero or something like that. So
Yeah, because they've never faced this situation before.
yeah,
Where the bigger
exactly.
brands have faced it maybe 7 or 8 times in their lives. Now, and just before you move on, I just want to say one more thing, which a lot of people will find controversial. If you're a success, I get it. If you're an MSME, I have at least 20 friends of mine who run MSMEs for the last 20, 25 years, and they say,
Mhm.
boss, we're having to shut down our business because we simply don't have the margins to continue to pay salaries, rent, electricity costs with 3 or 4 months of no revenue coming in. And I said, I get it. I understand. But put your hand on your heart and tell me that you've not taken money out of the business to buy your fancy houses in Jorbag, to buy those Bottega Veneta bags for your wives, to take those fancy holidays in the United States or Western Europe. You've taken money out of the system as well.
Yeah,
And today, there, if you've taken, so it's partly, as my mother would say, thodi to miya bavre, thodi pili bhang. It's yes, it is a situation that is unprecedented, but you've also taken money out of the system. So it's you made your bed, now you lie in it. That's point number one. Number two, I think today's compressed life cycles. You look at funded startups today. Zomato has laid off 30% of their workforce. Swiggy has
yeah,
laid off 15% of their workforce. Oyo has sacked thousands and thousands of people in China, America, and India. And by the way, these numbers are only people on their rolls. These are not
yeah,
off-roll people whose contracts have been cancelled.
yeah,
My question is simple. Where are all those billions of dollars of funding that you've raised for people, technology, and processes? Where's all that money gone?
yeah.
Technically, you can continue to pay their salaries for the next 100 years. Forget about 4 months. But nobody seems to be in a mood to do that. I mean, and that's what
Big fan
capitalism
of,
is all about.
yeah. So Samar, let's talk about the current topic, right? I mean, India
Yeah.
has banned a lot of Chinese apps, and there's a. So, what do you think should be the approach of Indian entrepreneurs towards that? Should they jump in and start building for that? The vacuum left there? Should they? Because do you think it is going to be permanent? Like, what would your advice be? Because a lot of people are thinking, okay, there's this like big TikTok vacuum, and so my question is, why won't Instagram be the next TikTok and stuff like that? So what's your advice to them?
So if I were Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or whoever, I mean, I would have been thinking about that in any case, regardless of whether TikTok gets banned or not. I mean, you should have thought that, Maybe
Yeah.
there is, I think TikTok's single greatest success is that it has been able to tap into the aspirations of smaller town youth. Everyone aspires to be famous, everyone aspires to present himself or herself as younger, cooler, smarter, fitter, more talented than they really are in real life. And I think it's a platform that gave vent to those aspirations. Um, why hasn't anyone else thought of it earlier on? Why did it take a Chinese origin company or a Chinese owned company to come back and understand our consumer better than we do? So
Yeah.
the question I would encourage the marketing and startup ecosystem is to ask that first. So that's number one. Number two, frankly, if you look at it, I mean, when I saw the list of apps that have been banned, I was actually familiar with only two or three, TikTok, and I happen to use UC browser. By the way, it's still working. So I don't know when the ban comes into effect. I think there's one app called Shine, which my daughter uses. So she was sort of, asking me about that. But most of the other apps, frankly, I hadn't used. But then I'm not the relevant target audience. Someone like you would know a lot of that. And I'm not getting into the politics of whether it's the right thing to do and whether it should have been banned. Also, remember the ban is temporary until they can actually show to the
Yeah.
government that data
That
is safe, it's not going to China, and so on and so forth. Also, these guys are all paying money into the PM Cares Fund and all sorts of other stuff as well, right? I think the reason why this ban has happened is because either directly or indirectly, the PLA, in actually senior members of the Communist Party actually have personal stake, personal business stake in a lot of these businesses, either directly or indirectly, and they are hoping that I mean, a combination of perhaps military, diplomatic, and economic action is what is going to hurt the Chinese. And
Yeah.
I believe the Chinese have raised serious concerns about that matter. So I would, what I would ask the Indian ecosystem to do is, first of all, these are not the only apps in this business. There are already smaller apps that are there, and do not take for a minute for granted that the apps are banned forever. I don't
Hmm.
think, personally, I don't think that's going to happen. There is just
Yeah.
simply too much revenue to be made by everyone. Tomorrow, and I know the number two, a childhood friend of mine, who's head of Bike Dance in India, and in fact, I want to ask him what's happening with you. But tomorrow they can meet the government, they can make presentations to the Prime Minister's office, to the Industries Minister, Commerce Ministry, etc., and they can reassure the government that your data is. I mean, tomorrow I can say, man, you know what? I'll locate all my servers in your geography, in your geographical country. You have so localization of servers, localization of data. You control it. I will prove to you that nothing is going to China.
Yeah. Then
And if
it's
they do
yeah.
that, then the government has no option but to rethink the rules under which you ban these apps.
Yeah.
I would advise entrepreneurs not to just simply rush in because these apps have been banned. And I always say never react to competition, react to consumers if consumers are reacting to competition. So if you believe, yeah, if you believe that there is an opportunity to have a platform that enables largely smaller town youth, largely, I'm saying it's not, I mean, I know even actors, even movie stars are on TikTok, to give vent to their theatrical and creative talents, etc. By all means, go and do it. And I think the advantage, in a way, is that China was initially known to copy and produce cheaper almost anything in the world. Here's
Yeah.
a ready-made business. Here's a ready-made business model for you and technology. It's easy to sort of replicate that in the Indian context. But I'm saying you should have been thinking about it even before these apps had got banned.
Exactly. No, makes sense.
So
Makes a lot of sense. So, the message for everybody is don't think of this as a big opportunity. Think fundamentally. If you think there is an opportunity just in case, get into it, not because there's a ban. And I completely agree with it. And so Samar, let's jump into some questions. There's already a few questions for you. So I don't also want to take
okay.
a lot of time, and because with marketing, this is a topic that people will just ask a lot of questions. So first question is from Jagreet Arora. He's asking, why is brand positioning important in on-demand businesses? So on-demand businesses are like Zomato, Swiggy, like app businesses where you press a button, something something comes and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
See, I think it's not as if brand positioning is not important in other businesses, and the rules that apply to business, across industries, across geographies, etc., apply in the on-demand business as well. There are certain specific challenges in the on-demand business that make it even more important. But essentially, what I like saying is that there are 5 rules for branding. Number one is clarity. Who are you? What do you do? Do you solve a real or perceived human pain point? Do you improve their lives? I mean, why are you in existence? What is your purpose? So there has to be clarity of the business model, clarity of the messaging, clarity also who you are not. What is it that you will not do? So, we used to have these architecture model that who I am, who I'm not, what I will do, what I will not do. And you can use the levers pyramid, you can use the diamond architect. There's just so many different models. But the number
Yeah.
one is clarity. Aap ho kaun? Aap kya karte ho? And in that also, I think every brand has to answer 3 questions in that clarity. Who am I? What do I do? And most brands stop there, Summer. The truly great brands answer a third question, which is how do I change your life?
Yeah.
So who am I? What do I do? And how do I change your life? And you will notice that most people fail in that in terms of how do I change your life. So the first one is clarity. The second one is relevance. Are you relevant for today's time? Now, for instance, if you're a wristwatch, if you're a luxury wristwatch brand today, first of all, youngsters don't wear, millennials simply are not buying watches anymore. Because as a timekeeping device, the mobile phone is far more effective, far more flexible, and so on and so forth. So I think watches for men today are perhaps the only acceptable form of male jewelry. At the end of the day, the world's largest selling watch is the Apple Watch. Last year, Apple sold 31 million watches globally. All the other branded Swiss watch India, there you go. The Swiss watch industry put together sold 21 million watches. So it would have been unthinkable even 3 or 4 years ago. So relevance, something that worked for you in the past may not work for you today. Past success is no guarantee of future success. So the first one is clarity. The second one is relevance. I mean, is it relevant? Is it technology? And I know you're a technology company, Samar. Technology is of no use if it has no application. Technology is not a means by itself. It's a means to an end. It needs to have an application. So second one is relevant. The third one is differentiation. How am I different from someone else? Why should I talk to Samar Singh Shekhawat and not to someone else? What is it that you bring to the table that no one else brings? And now you may not be completely different. Maybe you are cheaper. Maybe you're faster. Maybe you're smaller. Maybe you're addressing a white space that is not there in the current competitive set. So differentiation. The fourth one in the Indian context, very important, is presence. You see a lot of goods and services in this country get sold by the sheer physical fact of availability. So,
Yeah.
dikhta hai mujhe. So presence, and the last one is engagement. At the touch point, what is the moment of truth is when, or as the Americans say, where the rubber meets the road. What is the engagement? Because today, if I have a bad experience with Amazon, मैं तो साला Jeff Bezos को गाली दूंगा यार.
Yeah.
So that's really what it is. So clarity, relevance, differentiation, presence, and engagement. Specifically on the on-demand business, I think it's at hyper speed. So typically, what happens is I'm very fond of saying that customer loyalty is a leaky bucket. Every day you will lose consumers and customers. The aim is to add new customers at a rate that is higher than the rate at which you're losing. That's the way you'll have net incremental customers. I think one big challenge with the on-demand business is that there is instant consumer loyalty and instant consumer indifference and instant consumer, action. I mean, I can
Yeah.
uninstall the app, right? If I were to stop buying Lux soap, it'll still take me 2 or 3 months to stop doing that. It's probable that I have 4 or 5 soaps lying with me, and I'll finish
Yeah.
that first. But here, I can uninstall you immediately. I can write a
Right.
review. I can follow, Jack Dorsey on Twitter and tag him in a message. I mean, so they're just two-way communication, reaching the top of the chain immediately, instant satisfaction, instant dissatisfaction. I mean, those are some of the challenges that exist. And that is why brand positioning is even more important in the on-demand business.
Yeah, makes sense. So moving on to the next question. I mean, Wilfred is thanking you, and then there is Akhil who's asking, a question. So a lot of small businesses sprung up for grocery delivery, food delivery, etc. during the COVID, right? Globally, a lot of them, most of them failed. I mean, what would you say? What's your take on that? Is it like, why do you think it happened?
I'm not surprised it failed at all. If you see a movie called Gone with the Wind, or you see read the book, the Red Butler's character played by Clark Gable. Because the youngsters will all go and Google who is Clark Gable and what is Gone with the Wind. But Red Butler says in that there is always money to be made in the building and destruction of a nation. Slow money in the building of a nation and quick money in the destruction and the destroying of a nation. Like I said to you, the if you're get so I know people who are in the apparel business who've shut down their apparel business and they're only manufacturing personal protective equipment. They're making fast face masks, they're making gloves, they're making PPEs, and so on and so forth. Now, what happens to these people the day a vaccine for COVID is discovered or approved? It'll take a year, maybe 2 years. It can't take forever. I don't know. I mean, I hope I'm right on that, because vaccines
That's
for
what everybody's hoping, really. So
yeah, it is, because if you think of it, summer malaria took some 20 years for chloroquine and hydrochloroquine, etc., to be discovered and used. So fortunately, medical science is far more advanced. There are 120 global trials going on, and so on and so forth. What will you do when this situation passes? Because it will pass. I live in
yeah,
Bangalore, and 50% of the people are already out on the streets, and no one's wearing masks. So I mean, half of them are not wearing masks. So if you are jumping into business because there is a narrow window of opportunity, chronologically, geographically, it's not going to work. There needs to be a fundamental business, the rules of business. I mean, is there a relevance? Is it a long-term opportunity? Do you think consumers will continue to buy this, and so on and so forth? See, anyone who got into home delivery of fruits, vegetables should understand that even today, 10 years or 20 years after, 25 years after organized retail has got into food and grocery, the modern trade business still contributes to only 5% of food and grocery business. And everyone talks to me about home delivery of Alcobev. It will impact only 1% of the industry. So this is a very, very small, and there are many reasons. Digital payment gateways, credit card penetration, POS machines,
Somewhere I'll have to.
internet speeds, etc., etc.
A lot of questions coming, and we
Sure,
have
sure,
to.
sure, 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 sure.
Yeah.
Let's
So
move
one
ahead.
question from Priya is, what name one strategy you adopted to make United Breweries so successful?
Yeah, actually, I can see that question on my screen as well. I think there are, I think UBL, we made sure we are the largest manufacturing footprint. That's number one. We have 31 breweries, 21 of our own, 10 contract breweries. So wherever there is a state, literally, we had one brewery in every state. So the sheer ability to manufacture and supply. That's number one. Number two, the distribution network. We were available in 99.9% of all Alcobev stores. There are only 80,000 stores selling alcohol in this country. So that's number two. Number three, I think very sharply defined brands. Kingfisher is synonymous with beer. Number four, I think we had great marketing, with our associations across sports, fashion, food, music, IPL, Formula One, racing, the calendar, and so on and so forth. At the end of the day, boss, you're not selling a life-saving product. You're selling a product that just gives happiness to people, right? Beer. So you need to create the occasions, and you need to create the resolution, and a satisfactory, happy resolution for that occasion. And the last, I think, was a tenured organization. Most people at UB have worked there for 25, 30, 35, in some cases even 40 years. So there was this whole historical perspective and soft skill that existed with the organization that really made it successful. So manufacturing footprint, distribution network, sharply focused brands, great marketing, and a tenured organization.
Makes sense. So next question is, how would you know that this idea that you have is a good idea for a startup? How do you basically test your ideas? If you get an
Well,
idea today.
yeah, I would tell Arun to hire me, and then I will tell him. But since he's asked me this question, Arun, I think depending on your age, and you look like a young guy from your picture that is taking up. You may not have the experience to handle all of it. So bank and on the advice of people you respect. You must have sort of mentors and guidance, etc. Look at authentic sources of data. Talk to people who are subject matter experts. Don't trust things like WhatsApp and stuff. And remember that everyone has an agenda, right? Even if you go to a BCG or a Bain or an Accenture, At the end of the day, they are consultants, so they will have an agenda. But most importantly, talk to your consumer. Whenever you're in doubt, just go talk to your consumer. That, and the consumer is not your family. That's what's called cognitive bias. Go and talk to people that you don't know. So go and talk to people who you think will be the consumer for your your product or your brand. That is the singular deciding factor. And don't go with confirmation bias. Talk to people who don't know you. Talk to people who are outside your ecosystem. The problem, let's say, with advertising people is they'll talk only to advertising people. Don't do that. Walk the streets, talk to auto rickshaw drivers, talk to someone smoking a bidi, talk to your security guard, talk to the shopkeeper outside, talk to his son or her daughter. So just talk to people who are different from the world that you inhabit. Talk to people who you believe are potential consumers for the product or service that you're trying to offer, and then calibrate it. In India, things are never as good as they seem. Fortunately,
Yeah,
they're also never as bad as they seem.
that's very true. So that's next one is a very interesting question from Nidan. So he's asking, how did you rebuild Kingfisher and UB after Vijay Mallya's debacle? I mean, how did it impact, and what did you guys do?
If I could be given $1 for every time I was asked that question, I would be a millionaire now. But fortunately for us, Vijay Mallya's, while he was representative and emblematic of the brand and business, uh, I don't think people will stop drinking Kingfisher just because Vijay Mallya is going through personal problems. I mean, I'll
Yeah.
drink a beer if I like the beer. It's like Nike taking a stand with Colin Kaepernick. And if you don't know Nidan, who's Colin Kaepernick, you Google it. He was the man who took a knee, during the US national anthem being played, and Trump got really angry and sort of called all the NFL heads in America and told them not to hire him. You think Nike really cares about Black Lives Matter and White Lives Matter and All Lives Matter? They don't. Whatever personal views they have, this is a pure business decision. Remember that. You're probably a young guy. Don't get fooled by brands taking stands and causes. They don't care about those stands and causes. It's a pure business decision. Nike had done complex market simulation modeling that proved to them that if they put Colin Kaepernick as their brand ambassador, a lot of the white boys will get polarized, but the entire black African American fraternity would end up buying Nike shoes. So my submission is, don't buy Nike shoes because they stand for black rights. Buy them if you like the running shoes they make, because that's all they owe you. So that we just focused on the beer business, and he in any case never interfered really with the running of the business. And
Yeah,
professionals have run it all the time.
that makes sense. So the next question is from Navjot. So he's basically asking, what do you think would be a good post-pandemic business? If like, do you see something being permanently changed
Listen,
by?
if I'm a slightly contrarian view, because when you've lived as long as I have and seen as much as I have, you believe this too shall pass. So I think personally, and I don't think anyone's going to tell this to you, I think work from home is going to destroy both work and home, if you ask me. Because I've been working from home for the last 2 years. I did work out of a WeWork office for 6 or 8 months, and it didn't work for me. In any case, WeWork went through lots of troubles, and so I've gone back to working from home. But it's not as if I've had to now lock away my wife and daughter in 2 rooms so that they don't come behind the camera. Fortunately, I don't have grown-up young kids running around, etc. Also, while you're physically there, you're not mentally there. And yes, people claim they're more productive, but people are getting mentally frustrated, they're getting depressed, they're seeking help, they're seeking counseling. I get calls every day, 40, 50, 20, 30-year-old people crying on the phone because of mental stress. Someone's job has gone away, किसी की तनख्वाह कम हो गई, किसी को bonus नहीं मिला, किसी का promotion increment, चला गया. And remember one thing, and Samar also runs a large successful organization. As CEOs, I would advise you that do not fall prey to the evil HR agenda that is going on today, because HR people are using this to feed off the fears of employees and doing all sorts of stuff. I know personal examples. I'm not going to take those names. So this too shall pass. 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. Your business should sustain prior to COVID, during COVID, and post-COVID. If you think that this opportunity will stay forever, I'm sorry, you're wrong. And if you think people will continue to work from home, that's also not going to happen. We're just too, I mean, hundreds and thousands of years of human evolution do not change overnight. And there's just too much money riding on multiplexes, malls. I mean, malls have already opened, right? Liquor stores have opened. Flights have started. Soon, international flights will also start. We'll just have to learn to live with this, and just be careful. And business will sustain only if it was viable before COVID, and will then hopefully stay viable after COVID. So don't fall prey to small opportunistic opportunities. Because if you want to do that, why don't you start heroin smuggling or cocaine smuggling, right? Tremendous returns, but there are massive risks as well.
Yeah, it's true. So next, my marketing team is actually asking what are your thoughts on transition in marketing, like from field to digital? Like, it's like earlier there used to be a lot of field marketing, it still there is, but is that transitioning to digital first of all, or are they going to coexist?
Yeah, I'm not sure whether the question is in terms of career prospects for a person who's in field marketing and moving to digital marketing, or is the question more to do with how
I think
brands
I think
sort
it's
of.
about the brands piece. Yeah, I
So
hope
you know
so.
what? The problem with life, whoever's asked this question from your team, is that it is never an either or situation. It's always an and situation. You see, if I'm the coach of the Indian cricket team, do I say that, you know what, should I select Rohit Sharma or Virat Kohli? I can't choose. I have to have both. Of course, Rohit
Yeah,
is much more consistent now than he used to be. But until 3 years ago, you knew that Virat would give you 60 or 70 runs every time. Whereas Rohit will give you 0, 0, 0, 0, 200, 0, 0, 0, 200, 0, 0, 0, 200. Now you'll hope that today is the day where he gives you 200. Fortunately, he's become much more consistent now. So life is usually never either or. Either or decisions are easy to make. You will find you always have to make and decisions. I'll be hard pressed to think of a single brand that can do only field marketing or only digital marketing. You need to do everything, because you need to touch the consumer at every point of his or her life cycle. So the transition is in the question transition. It means that you're going to stop doing one and move to the other. That's never going to happen. You have to do both field marketing and digital and brand, everything. I told you, clarity, relevance, differentiation, presence, and engagement. The last two are presence and engagement. Present means you need to be present. Engaged means you need to be talking to your consumer. And both digital and field do both of that.
so next question is from Deeksha. So she's asking, YouTube is launching something called Shorts, similar to
Yes,
TikTok, looking at the
yes.
situation. So do you think they can seize this opportunity, or do you think it's not going to work for them?
See, I think the difference is that, again, you can't compare, because at the end of the day, this is owned by YouTube, right? I'm not sure whether people can post their own videos on Shorts or not, because you need to give the power away to the consumer.
Yeah.
And then you have to put a stone on your heart, and you have to be willing to run with the fact that you will see pornography on it. You will see maybe drug abuse on it. You will see maybe unlawful activities happening, because the app is only a mirror or a reflection of what human beings are.
Yeah.
So will YouTube compliance and governance policies and your privacy and security policies will probably take care of a lot of that, which means by definition it will not become as big. Free
Yeah.
market is what really makes it big. And I think we are very poor at self-governing and self-disciplining ourselves. So I don't think it can become as big as TikTok. I don't think TikTok thought they would become as big as they've become.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's
but there is an opportunity, but I personally don't think it'll be as big as TikTok.
makes sense. So, I think let's make it the last question. I know you have to also go. Uh, so Sahaj is asking, how does one crack B2C business models without offering freebies or burning cash? Because in India today, it's like, standard that if you need customers, if you need to market, like, okay, free food, free this, free that.
Sehajbir, I want to ask you: is Zomato making money? Is
Well,
U-
like,
is Uber making money? Is Oyo making money? What is the purpose of business? At the end of the day, the purpose of business is deliver profit and returns to your stakeholders. Now,
Yeah.
how long do you think Jack Ma or Alibaba or Tencent or whoever is investor or Tiger or TPG, whoever, how long do you think they will continue to fund these brands? Their valuations have already fallen. They can rise dramatically, they can fall dramatically. And also remember, Sahajbir, for every Zomato and Uber there that you read about, there are 100 others that failed that never even, so it's like for every Shah Rukh Khan, there will be thousands and thousands of people who wanted to become an actor and didn't make it. So remember, you read only about the one that became successful. And despite burning so much cash, they're not making money. Look at Flipkart as the best example. Walmart bought Flipkart for some 16, 17 billion dollars. And since the time they've bought it, I think Flipkart has burned through another $1.5, $2 billion, and their losses have actually increased. Their losses are increasing at a rate that is higher than the revenue increase. That's
Yeah.
number one. Number two, the moment, look, if you're good at something, Sahajbir, never do it for free. Because
Yeah.
if you don't value your own brand and your own product, the consumer will not. You will get that consumer briefly. Tomorrow, someone else will come and take that consumer by giving something else free. So, if you believe you have a brand or a product or a service that is worth it, never give it for free. Never burn freebies. These guys they're all disappear overnight. Perfect strike, he's written. Okay.
So I think so. Yeah, that's it. So Samar, so thanks a lot. This was super engaging, man. I mean, I'm like, getting a lot of private messages also that this is very very good, and they loved hearing you. So in fact, I think I need to connect with you and take guidance from you, and
Happy to do that.
maybe as a consultant. And we always have a lot of pressing issues where we need somebody of your caliber who has seen like scale, because
Right.
to be honest, for us, scale is like it's every day is the newer scale, which is a
Yeah.
good problem to have, but still a problem to have. So I should connect with you, but yeah, thanks a lot for giving the time, and it was really really good to have you here. And I certainly learned a lot, and I would really ping you, from time to time to pick your brains on things. If
Sure,
you are
Samar.
ever in,
Absolutely. Thank you. Where are you based, Samar?
I'm in Chandigarh, so if you ever
Oh
come to
yes,
Chandigarh,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I used to.
yeah,
Well, I used to. It's funny when I was to work for Pepsi. Was in Gurgaon. I used to go very often to Chandigarh, and
okay,
even at UB, where when I would go very, very often to Punjab and Chandigarh, and I worked actually all over Punjab and Haryana as well.
I
And one
think
of the most
Punjab makes probably the most beer per capita. That's probably
No, that's not true. The that's a commonly held belief. Actually, the per capita is probably amongst the highest is in Goa, Kerala, Tamil
yeah. Goa
Nadu, stuff like that. Yeah, but yeah,
Yeah,
that's the image that people have, but that's not
I
true.
I love Kingfisher Ultra, by the way. So I'm
Oh,
a
thank you, thank you.
consumer also of your brand. So thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, thank you, Samar. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to connect with you separately. Thank you, Jungle Works, for having me over. Thank you. All the best.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much, everybody. Very nice to have you all here. Thank you. Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Thanks. Bye. Thanks.